Psalm 46:1 declares, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." This verse highlights two powerful truths. God is our refuge, meaning He is a safe place where we can find protection, and He is our strength, meaning He equips us to endure life's difficulties. When God is your refuge, you can rest assured that no storm can destroy you. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when life brings unexpected challenges. But in those moments, we can find peace, knowing that God is with us. Stillness is not a sign of weakness, but rather a declaration of confidence. When we stop fighting on our own and trust that God is our strength, we allow Him to fight for us. It is in these moments of stillness that God's power can truly be seen. Just as a strong wind cannot be felt until the air is still, God's power is often revealed when we stop trying to do everything ourselves. Take a moment today to remember that God is your refuge and strength, and that in stillness His power will fight on your behalf. Leave a 1 if you feel God's protection in your life today. There are two types of stillness, one that comes from fear and one that comes from faith. The first is a retreat from the battle, an act of surrender born from anxiety and doubt. The second is a position of strength, where we choose to trust in God's plan, even when the outcome is not clear. Stillness born from faith does not mean inactive activity. It is the decision to place our confidence in God, knowing that He is in control. It's like standing still in the face of a storm and trusting that the storm will pass because we know the One who holds the power over the winds and waves. Faith in God's kingdom is not measured by our physical actions, but by our spiritual trust. When we choose to be still in faith, we are saying, "I trust God to move in His timing and in His way." This kind of stillness invites God's intervention, making space for His miraculous work. If you're going through something difficult today, choose stillness from faith. Trust that God is working behind the scenes and that His victory will come. Leave a 1 if you are standing still in faith today. Stillness is not about being inactive or doing nothing. It is a divine strategy that allows you to align your heart and mind with God's will, especially in times of turmoil. In life, we often face battles, challenges at work, in relationships, or even personal struggles. During these times, stillness is essential. It's not about retreating in fear, but standing firm in the knowledge that God is our refuge and strength. Psalm 46 reminds us that God is our ever-present help, even in the most chaotic moments. When we embrace stillness, we aren't simply doing nothing, but rather, we are trusting in God's omnipotence, allowing Him to fight for us. This trust in God's power is what enables us to face challenges with confidence, knowing that His strength will overcome all obstacles. So, in your moments of stress or anxiety, practice stillness, pause, reflect, and trust that God is already at work. Leave a 1 in the comments if you believe that God is fighting your battles today. Exodus 14:14 declares, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." This powerful verse illustrates that sometimes God calls us to stand still in the face of our battles. When we do, we allow His power to move and fight on our behalf. Stillness is not a passive act, but an intentional surrender to God's plan. It means stepping back and trusting that God will handle the situation in ways that we cannot. We see this exemplified in the Bible when the Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and the Egyptian army. In that moment of desperation, God told them to be still, and He parted the sea, providing a miraculous escape. Stillness in faith is a position that allows God's miraculous power to manifest. When we stand still, we are inviting God to work in ways that defy human understanding. If you are in a situation that seems impossible, remember that God is calling you to stand still and watch His divine power move on your behalf. Leave a 1 if you believe that God will fight your battles for you today. In Job 19:25, Job declares, "For I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth." Despite losing everything, his wealth, health, family, and respect, Job refused to let his suffering define his faith in God. He stood still in the midst of his pain and acknowledged that God would ultimately bring him victory. This verse teaches us that even in our most painful moments, we must choose to trust that God's plan will prevail. Job's faith was unwavering, and he believed that God would make a way where there seemed to be no way. His declaration was an act of stillness, choosing to remain firm in his faith even when everything around him seemed to crumble. When you face suffering, stand still and believe that God is working behind the scenes. Even in the darkest moments, remember that God's plan is always better than what we can see. Leave a 1 if you trust that God has a plan for your life, even in the hard times. Isaiah 37-36 tells the story of God's miraculous intervention when the Israelites were surrounded by their enemies. The Assyrian army had come to attack Jerusalem, but God sent an angel who struck down 1,850,000 Assyrian soldiers in a single night. The city did not lift a sword. God fought for them. This demonstrates that God's timing is perfect. We may not always understand why we must wait, but God is always working in His perfect timing. When we remain still, we allow God's power to manifest at just the right moment. Our victory is not always immediate, but it is always guaranteed when we trust in God's plan. God knows exactly when to step in, and His intervention is always beyond our comprehension. Stand still and trust that God will bring victory in His time. Leave a 1. If you believe that God's timing is always perfect and that He is fighting for you, stillness is not about waiting idly. It is an act of faith. It is the moment before God acts on your behalf, preparing for His divine intervention. When you stop fighting on your own and wait on God, you make room for His miraculous work to unfold. God's timing is never early or late, but always perfect. Think of a seed planted in the ground. It doesn't grow overnight, but in the right time, it will sprout. Similarly, God's miracles often appear when we choose to be still, trusting that He is at work even when we cannot see the results yet. Stillness is the place where faith and divine timing meet. It is where you choose to trust God, even when you don't know how things will unfold. Trust that in the stillness, God is preparing something greater than you could ever imagine. Leave a 1 if you are ready to receive the breakthrough that God is preparing for you. In Acts 3:6-7, we see the story of a man who had been lame from birth. He was carried to the temple gate every day to beg for alms, depending on the mercy of others. However, when Peter and John came by, they did not offer him money. Instead, Peter spoke a powerful declaration. "In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." Immediately, the man's feet and ankles were healed. This was a miracle that occurred not through human effort, but through God's power. This story shows that sometimes breakthroughs only come when we let go of our need for control and surrender to God's will. The man had to be still, waiting for God to intervene in his life. Likewise, we must learn to stop striving and allow God's miraculous power to transform our lives. Our healing, our breakthroughs, and our victories come when we let God take over. Leave a 1 if you believe that God can perform miracles in your life when you surrender to His will. Sometimes the most powerful victories come when we choose to stand still in faith. This may sound paradoxical, but when we stop trying to fix things with our own strength, we make room for God's intervention. One example is the healing of the woman with the issue of blood in Mark 5:28. She had suffered for 12 years, spending all her money on doctors, but none could heal her. When she heard about Jesus, she simply touched the hem of his garment, and she was healed instantly. Her healing was a result of her faith and stillness, believing that Jesus had the power to heal her. Similarly, we must stand still in faith, trusting that God's power is greater than our efforts. Often, our biggest breakthroughs happen when we stop trying to control the outcome and let God work. If you're in need of a breakthrough, stand still in faith and trust that God will move on your behalf. Leave a 1 if you believe that victory comes when we trust God and let go of our own control. Stillness is not weakness, it is a powerful position for breakthrough. When we stand still in faith, we are aligning ourselves with God's divine plan and allowing His power to move on our behalf. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." This simple yet profound command calls us to trust God completely, even when we can't see the full picture. In the moments of waiting, God is working behind the scenes, preparing something greater than we can imagine. Remember that your stillness is not in vain. It is a divine strategy that allows God to move in His perfect timing. So, the next time you face a challenge, choose to stand still and trust that God is already working things out. Leave a 1. If you are ready to trust in God's plan for your life, knowing that He is always working behind the scenes,